Hello everyone, my name's Paul Henderson and I'm a consultant with Promar International. I'm here today to talk to one of our in-house experts, Emma Thompson, about the implications of making good or bad grass silage and what financial impact that could have on your business. So Emma, what would be one of the main factors that would influence how good or bad our grass silage was?
Well, one of the main key indicators we look for is energy, and obviously that's a measurement on analysis of ME. An average grass silage analysis would have an ME of somewhere around about 9.5. A good grass silage should have an ME in excess of about 11.5. Obviously the difference between the average silage and the good silage is about 2 megajoules of energy. So we would target cows to eat about 12 kilos of dry matter per day of forage. So if you take your 2 kilos and times by the 12, you end up with a difference of 24 megajoules of energy per day the cow's eating. If you then want to convert that into litres of milk, because obviously that's what farmers get paid on, so 24 megajoules of energy, a litre of milk is about 5.4. So if you divide the 24 by 5.4, you end up with about 4.4 litres per day per cow. So if you take today's current milk price, which is approximately 25 pence per litre, times that by 4.4 litres, you end up with approximately £1 10p per day per animal. And if, for example, you have an average herd size of, say, 100 cows, that's going to equate to £110 per day per herd. If you're looking at for a winter then, so obviously you take your £110 times the 180 winter period, which will equal £19,800 for the winter.
But ME is only one aspect on a grass silage analysis. There are many others, and certainly my farmers often ask me about crude protein. What's a good crude protein and what's a bad crude protein, and what implication does that have on their business over the winter? So Emma, if we were going to look at a good crude protein and a bad one, what sort of financial implications does that have to one of my customers?
So we'll run through a similar scenario as we did with the ME. So an average silage analysis would have about 14% crude protein, and a good silage analysis would have in excess of about 16% crude protein. So if we say, as before, cows will generally eat approximately 12 kilos of dry matter per day, that equates to 1,680 grams of crude protein, or in this instance at 16% crude protein, is 1,920 grams of crude protein. The difference obviously being 240 grams. So 240 grams, and if we take rape as an equivalent, so rape is about 38% crude protein, so if we take 380 grams per kilo, so if we divide 240 by 380, we end up with 0.66 kilos in dry matter terms. So we don't feed cows on dry matter, we feed cows on fresh weight, so we need to convert the dry matter into the fresh weight, and rape is an equivalent of 88% dry matter, so we need to times this 0.66 by 88%, which gives us 0.71 kilos of fresh weight, a rape equivalent. So if we then take rape at £220 a tonne, and times by the 0.71, we end up with 15 pence per day per animal. So again, if a scenario of 100 cows, that's ending up at £15.70 per day across the herd. And if we take the 180-day winter again, we end up with £2,850.
Now remember, Emma's used 12 kilograms of dry matter in each of the examples. That's a hard number to achieve, and quite often it's a lot lower than that. So what we're going to do between us now is try and work through what things might affect that dry matter number and what implications that could have financially to a farmer if he gets that dry matter number right.
I would say certainly clamp management, using a block cutter. Don't use a bucket, because if you get air into that clamp, you've got to run the risk of secondary fermentation. And we know that the difference between good clamp management and poor clamp management is equivalent to 15% dry matter losses.
What about in terms of the diet, Emma, and the presentation?
You want it to be open, spongy, not too dry, not too wet, so you target a total dry matter of a TMR of about 40 to 45%.
What implications does having the right amount of water in front of these cows and clean water in front of these cows have on the dry matter intake of the forage?
It's exactly the same scenario as if you were trying to eat Weetabix without any milk. You'd certainly become very, very thirsty. And this is what happens with the cows. They would need somewhere in the region of about 150 litres of water to sustain the 45 to 50 litres of milk. So certainly access to clean water is a must.
What sort of an impact can we have by pushing the feed up more and making sure we keep feed in front of them for longer?
It certainly encourages them to come back and eat, and the more that we can get into them, then potentially the more they'll utilise and the more energy and protein they can get out of the diet and dry matter intake.
So Emma, we've just looked at these factors that can influence dry matter intake. What happens if instead of getting 12 kilograms of dry matter intake in the examples we used before, we only got 10 kilograms of dry matter intake because we got some of these factors wrong? What would happen financially to the business?
Right, okay. So you're looking at a difference of 2 kilos of dry matter per day. So if we take a concentrate equivalent, which is approximately at the moment about £225 a tonne, so £225 at 2 kilos would give us 44 pence per day difference. So if we then looked at a 100 cow herd, similar scenarios to last time, we're looking at £44 per day per herd. And then obviously over the 180-day winter again, it comes out at somewhere in the region £8,100.
So we've now looked at energy with ME, we've looked at crude protein, and we've looked at dry matter intake. And it's come to a staggering £30,750 to a 100 cow dairy over a 180-day winter to making the silage right, feeding the silage right, and making sure there's enough silage in front of these cows all the time.